She filled in for her roommate's babysitting job, and unexpectedly fell for the little girl's dad, a secret millionaire. It was a chilly Friday evening in Portland. 28-year-old Maya Jennings, a freelance illustrator with dark curly hair, olive-toned skin, and a tired face, had just settled in with her sketchpad when her phone buzzed. Her roommate Trish frantically texted, "Emergency at work, can you please cover my babysitting shift, please?" Maya sighed. Babysitting wasn't her thing. She barely had time for herself, let alone someone else's child, but Trish had been a loyal friend during Maya's worst year after her mother passed away, so saying no felt impossible. Reluctantly, she grabbed her oversized cardigan, slipped on her boots, and headed out. The address was in a wealthy neighborhood on the east side, far from her usual haunts. As she walked up the steps of a beautiful red brick townhouse, she had no idea that behind that door was a little girl whose sadness mirrored her own, and whose laughter would later bring her back to life. The door creaked open, revealing a tall man in his late 30s with soft brown eyes, tousled dark hair, and a gentle expression that didn't match his expensive gray blazer and watch. He looked surprised to see Maya. "You're not Trish," he said, voice low but kind. "I'm her roommate. She had an emergency. I'm Maya," she replied, pushing a nervous smile. After a pause, he stepped aside. "I'm Evan. Thank you for coming." Inside, the home was elegant but lived in. Toys peeked out from beneath the couch. Finger paintings lined the hallway. A quiet stillness filled the house except for a soft rustle from upstairs. "She's just finishing her dinner," Evan said. "Her name's Ellie. She's 6. Maya nodded, nerves prickling her spine. She wasn't great with kids, but something in Evan's eyes, exhausted and a little sad, made her want to stay. He gave quick instructions. Bedtime was at 8. No sweets after dinner. Ellie liked bedtime stories. And with that, he grabbed his coat, thanked her again, and disappeared into the night. Upstairs, Maya tiptoed into a pale lavender bedroom decorated with stars on the ceiling and stuffed animals everywhere. Sitting cross-legged on the bed was Ellie, 6 years old, caramel-colored skin, big hazel eyes, and long dark braids tied with pink ribbons. She looked up and blinked slowly. "You're not Trish," she said plainly. Maya chuckled. "I'm her backup, Maya." Ellie studied her silently, then nodded. "Okay." Maya sat beside her and noticed the untouched plate of food on the bedside table. "Not hungry?" "I miss my mommy," Ellie said softly, eyes downcast. Maya's heart twisted. She didn't ask questions. She knew that kind of sadness, the kind that hovered in silence, never fully leaving. So instead, she gently asked, "Want to pick a story for bedtime?" Ellie handed her a book about a dragon with no friends. As Maya read, Ellie leaned against her shoulder without a word. For the first time in a long time, Maya felt needed. As Maya read aloud, she stumbled over a line. "The dragon thought no one would ever understand how lonely he felt." She paused, the words catching in her throat. Ellie looked up. "Why did he feel lonely?" Maya blinked back, sudden tears. "Sometimes, even dragons lose someone they love." Ellie leaned in closer. "My mommy died last year. She got very sick." Maya didn't respond right away. She just wrapped an arm around the little girl's shoulder. "I lost my mom too," she whispered. It was the first time she had said those words aloud in months, not to her friends. Not even to Trish, but here in a little girl's room filled with soft toys and soft pain, the truth finally found its way out. They sat in silence for a while, the book forgotten. Ellie rested her head on Maya's lap. Maya, blinking back emotion, gently stroked her hair. It was no longer about covering a shift. Something had shifted in her. By the time Evan returned around 11 p.m., Ellie was fast asleep and Maya was still beside her, dozing gently against the headboard. The room was dim, peaceful. Evan stepped in quietly and paused, watching the scene. He hadn't seen Ellie that peaceful in months. Most nights she fought bedtime or cried herself to sleep. Tonight her breathing was steady, her hand still clutched Maya's. He gently tapped Maya's shoulder. She stirred, blinking, then smiled groggily. "Sorry, I didn't mean to fall asleep. You stayed with her," he said, surprised. "I didn't want to leave." Evan offered her a grateful look. "Would you consider babysitting again?" Maya hesitated. She had freelance deadlines. She was terrible with routine. But something in her heart answered before her brain could. "I'd love to." She stepped out into the night with a different kind of warmth than she'd arrived with. It wasn't just babysitting anymore. It was something deeper, a spark of healing she hadn't expected to find in someone else's home. The following Friday, Maya returned to the townhouse with a small stuffed dragon tucked into her tote bag. Ellie's eyes lit up the moment she saw her. "You came back," she exclaimed, leaping off the couch and throwing her arms around Maya's waist. Maya was stunned by the hug, but quickly knelt down and returned it. "Of course I did. I brought someone new for you to meet." She pulled out the plush dragon. "Meet Theo the Brave." Ellie's face transformed. "He looks just like the one in the book." From that night forward, babysitting Ellie became a weekly routine. But it didn't feel like a chore. Each visit brought laughter, silly games, dance-offs, whispered stories, and the kind of comfort Maya didn't know she needed. Ellie began to open up more about her mom. In return, Maya found herself sharing her own memories, of baking cookies with her mom, of rainy Sundays spent sketching. What had started as a favor was slowly becoming a bond, not just with Ellie, but also with Evan. They began chatting at the end of each evening about everything from books to grief to parenting, and for the first time in years, Maya felt grounded. A month after Maya first met Ellie, Evan hesitated before she left one evening. "We're having a small dinner on Sunday," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's Ellie's birthday. Just a few close friends and her cousins. She asked if you could come." Maya was caught off guard. "She wants me there," she insisted, he said, smiling. "You've become important to her." Maya's heart swelled. She hadn't expected to matter to a child, especially one she barely knew a few weeks ago. She accepted the invitation, and that Sunday she wore her favorite dress and brought a sketchbook filled with drawings she and Ellie had created together. The party was small, warm, and full of laughter. Ellie clung to Maya's hand the whole time, introducing her proudly as my babysitter, but more like my friend. Evan watched them both throughout the day, something soft and admiring in his eyes. At the end of the night, as Maya helped clean up, Evan said quietly, "I don't think I've seen her this happy since before." He didn't have to say before what. Maya understood. 2 weeks later, a thunderstorm hit just as Maya was finishing up a babysitting shift. The power flickered, and Ellie clung to Maya, wide-eyed and trembling. "Storms scare me," she whispered, crawling into Maya's lap. "It's okay," Maya said, hugging her tight. "They scare me too sometimes." Evan arrived home soaked from the rain. "You okay?" he asked, noticing the flashlight Maya had propped on the table and the two of them wrapped in a blanket fort. "We're surviving," Maya smiled. Evan glanced at the weather alert on his phone. "Roads are flooding. You shouldn't drive." He offered the guest room without hesitation. Maya, exhausted and secretly grateful, agreed. That night Ellie insisted Maya tuck her in, even with Evan home, and refused to sleep until Maya promised not to leave before breakfast. The next morning the three of them had pancakes together in the kitchen. The smell of maple syrup and fresh coffee lingered in the air as Ellie chattered away. Maya laughed at one of her jokes, and Evan caught himself smiling longer than he meant to. Something had shifted again. The air between them was warmer, more familiar, less like strangers and more like family. The following week, Evan sat Maya down after Ellie had fallen asleep. "I've been thinking," he began, his tone more serious than usual. "Ellie's therapist suggested consistency is important, someone she can trust, someone who really connects with her." Maya nodded, listening. "I was wondering if you'd consider becoming her regular nanny, part-time, flexible with your freelance work. You'd still have creative freedom, but also be part of something stable here." Maya felt the weight of the offer. It was more than a job, it was trust. It was family. She hesitated. "Are you sure that's what's best for Ellie?" Evan looked her straight in the eyes. "I think she already knows it is. I just needed to catch up." The decision came easily, surprisingly. Maya agreed, but what she didn't say out loud was this. She needed them too. This home, this child, this strange new rhythm. They were saving her just as much as she was helping them. A few days into her new routine as Ellie's part-time nanny, Maya sat with her on the kitchen floor painting big strokes on an old cardboard box they'd turned into a castle. Ellie, splattered in blue and gold paint, turned to Maya suddenly. "Do you think Mommy would have liked you?" Maya's throat caught. "I think she would have loved you so much that she'd want you to be surrounded by people who love you too." Ellie nodded and went back to painting. That night Maya sketched the scene in her journal. Ellie smiling beside their castle, paint on her cheeks, eyes shining with joy. She didn't know what the future held exactly, but she did know that she'd found something unexpectedly beautiful. Sometimes the most profound connections come not from planning but from one spontaneous yes. 3 weeks into her new role, Maya was caught off guard when Ellie had her first emotional meltdown in front of her. It was bedtime, and Ellie refused to brush her teeth. She kicked off her slippers, crossed her arms, and yelled, "I want Mommy to do it." Maya froze. This was new. She knelt beside Ellie, her voice calm. "I know you miss her." Ellie burst into tears. "I forget what her voice sounds like." "I don't want to forget." Maya wrapped her arms around the sobbing child. Her heart broke with every cry that echoed through the hallway. "You won't forget. She's in you, in your laugh, in the way you love." Later, after Ellie had finally fallen asleep in her arms, Maya sat on the living room couch with a mug of tea, her thoughts spinning. She hadn't been prepared for this side of caregiving, the raw grief, the unpredictability. When Evan walked in, she quietly told him what happened. He listened, then simply said, "Thank you for staying. It means more than I can say." And Maya realized something. She wasn't just Ellie's support. Evan had started leaning on her too. One rainy Saturday, Maya invited Ellie over to her apartment for a change of scenery. Evan agreed, and Ellie packed a tiny backpack full of toys and snacks like it was a grand adventure. Maya's place was modest, warm walls covered with art prints, plants in mismatched pots, and a sketchpad always within reach. Ellie explored the space with curiosity, pointing at Maya's drawings. "Did your mom teach you to draw?" Maya paused. "She used to draw with me all the time when I was little. I think that's how I started." Ellie sat on the floor and pulled a sketchbook toward her. "Can you draw me and Mommy, like from your heart?" The request stopped Maya cold. She took a breath, then began sketching Ellie holding the hand of a woman in a flowing dress, smiling beneath a cherry blossom tree. She'd never seen Ellie's mom, but she imagined her warm and strong, with the same spark in her eyes as her daughter. When she showed Ellie, the girl smiled softly. "That's exactly how I remember her." And in that moment, Maya realized she wasn't just filling a gap, she was helping Ellie rebuild memories through love. It started with pancakes. On one sleepy Sunday morning, Maya and Ellie created funny face pancakes, berries for eyes, whipped cream mustaches, syrup smiles. Evan wandered in, amused and still groggy, and joined them. From then on, Sunday Pancake Day became a new ritual. They each had roles. Ellie was the ingredient boss, Maya flipped the pancakes, and Evan was in charge of toppings. What had started as a babysitting favor was now shaping into something deeper. Rituals, laughter, inside jokes. It felt like a real family, not just three people temporarily stitched together by circumstance. One day, Ellie whispered to Maya while they built a pancake tower, "I think you're like my new mom, but with different hair." Maya didn't know what to say, so she just kissed Ellie's forehead and smiled. Later that night she cried, but not out of sadness, out of love, out of the slow realization that her heart had quietly, completely been claimed. One evening, after Ellie had gone to bed early with a cold, Maya stayed behind to help Evan clean up. The mood was quiet, domestic. They moved in sync. She dried dishes while he rinsed. They chatted about nothing and everything. Then Evan turned to her and asked, "Have you ever thought about staying more permanently?" Maya blinked. I mean, he said gently. "What we're doing, what you're doing for Ellie, for me, it's more than just help. It's become something we both count on, something real. And I think you feel it too." She did, of course she did, but the question terrified her. Maya had never pictured herself settling into someone else's life. She'd built her world to avoid vulnerability, but now there was a girl who trusted her more than anyone. A man who looked at her with quiet admiration, and a life that finally made sense. She didn't answer right away. She didn't need to. The silence was full of something unspoken but powerful. The seed had been planted. A month later, Maya was invited to showcase her work at a local gallery. It was a big step. She hadn't shown her drawings publicly since art school. The invitation felt like recognition, but it also came with nerves. She nearly turned it down. But it was Evan who encouraged her. "You've given so much to us," he said. "Let us show up for you now." So she went ahead with it. On the night of the show, Evan and Ellie arrived hand in hand, Ellie holding a small bouquet of daisies. "For you," she said, beaming. Maya's exhibit was titled Echoes. Every piece was inspired by her time with Ellie. Sketches of castles, dragons, laughter, quiet moments between a girl and the woman who stumbled unexpectedly into her life. As people wandered through the gallery, Maya caught Evan watching her from across the room. Not with pride, but with affection. The kind that says, "I see all of you, and I care about all of it." And in that moment, surrounded by her art, Maya realized this wasn't just a new chapter, it was a new story entirely. Just as life was beginning to settle into something beautiful, something familiar, Ellie fell seriously ill. It started as a low fever, nothing unusual for a child. But after 2 days her condition worsened. Persistent vomiting, fatigue, confusion. Evan rushed her to the hospital, and Maya, upon hearing the news, dropped everything to join them. Hours crawled by in sterile hallways under fluorescent lights. Evan paced. Maya held his hand. Neither of them spoke much, but they clung to each other like anchors. Finally, the doctors delivered the diagnosis. A rare viral infection, treatable but requiring days of close monitoring. Ellie would have to stay in the pediatric ward. She was frightened, pale, and barely able to speak. Maya didn't leave her side. Through the IVs, the beeping machines, and the sterile sheets, Maya sat with Ellie night after night, reading stories, sketching little dragons to tape on the wall, whispering promises that she would get better. And as she sat there, something became undeniable. Maya didn't just care for Ellie, she loved her, fiercely, unconditionally, like a mother would. On the third night in the hospital, Ellie was finally awake enough to speak clearly. Her small voice cut through the hum of machines. "Maya, will you stay forever?" Maya blinked, stunned. "You mean stay tonight?" "No," Ellie whispered, eyes glossy. "Forever." The innocence of it shattered something inside Maya. She gently brushed Ellie's hair back, her voice shaking. "If your dad's okay with it, then yes. I'll stay forever." Evan, who had quietly stepped into the room behind her, heard every word. They locked eyes, and for the first time there were no barriers between them, no unspoken fears, no uncertainty, only truth. Later, when Ellie drifted off to sleep, Evan sat beside Maya on the hospital cot. "She asked for something we both want," he said softly. Maya nodded. "But I'm scared." "So am I," he admitted. "But I've never been more sure of anything." They sat in silence, fingers brushed, hearts opened, and a quiet decision took root, a decision that would change all their lives. Ellie recovered within a week thanks to early treatment and constant care. When she finally returned home, the house seemed warmer, fuller, as if it had been waiting for her laughter to return. That first night back, Evan made dinner. Maya helped Ellie back into her favorite pajamas, and they all ate around the table like it was the most natural thing in the world. No grand declarations had been made, no labels had been forced, but the bond was there, unmistakable and strong. Later, after Ellie had fallen asleep, Maya walked out onto the balcony. Evan joined her, bringing a blanket to wrap around her shoulders. "I want this," he said quietly. "All of it, you, Ellie, us." Maya turned to him, tears forming. "Me too." He didn't propose, he didn't need to. What they had was already stronger than any ring. It was trust, built brick by brick through stormy nights, pancake Sundays, and whispered bedtime promises. This wasn't temporary, this was home. 6 months later, on a spring morning filled with sun and birdsong, Ellie sat in the garden with Maya, painting flowers on small stones. "You're really my family now, right?" she asked, smearing yellow paint on her nose. Maya smiled, brushing a streak of green on her own cheek. "I always was, we just didn't know it yet." Evan came out with lemonade, setting the glasses down beside them. He kissed the top of Ellie's head, then gently took Maya's hand. They had decided to move in together not long after Ellie's recovery. Their lives had become seamlessly woven. School runs, art projects, evening walks, storytime snuggles. Maya still drew, but her art had changed. It now overflowed with emotion, with softness, with Ellie. She was no longer sketching alone in her apartment. She was building a life, with messy mornings and quiet evenings, and a love she hadn't even known she needed until it found her. It all began with a single favor. A yes she almost didn't give. Maya had never planned on stepping into someone else's world. She certainly hadn't expected to become a cornerstone in a grieving father's home, or to love a little girl with the kind of depth that rewrites your soul. But life had different plans. She'd stepped in to babysit, and in return found healing, purpose, and a family that chose her, again and again. So when people asked how it all happened, Maya would smile and say, "I said yes to something small, and it became everything." If you enjoyed this heartfelt journey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Because sometimes the most beautiful chapters of life begin with a quiet knock at the door and a single act of kindness.